good, beautiful morning right here on TV47 Morning Cafe. It's here, and of course with me, Linda Alela. Beautiful Monday, 29th day of June 2020. I hope that indeed your month is coming to an end on a very good note. Much as everyone is not, of course, enjoying these moments, especially at this time of COVID-19. But we can only hope that things are going to get better and better by the day, even as there are telltale signs as to the opportunities of us reopening as a county. Yesterday, the Ministry of Health coming out to say that that one will be highly attributed to what, of course, the counties will have done or will have achieved before that address by President Uhuru Kenyatta. Have they achieved much? Have they done what is expected of them? We'll be taking a look at that as we proceed. Thank you so much for always keeping it TV47. My name is Linda Alela, and it is time that we take you through what is happening in the world of news. Take a look at what my team has prepared, what the newspaper has in store for you. We have the dailies, the 4 dailies right in the country, of course, the People's Daily, the Standard newspaper, the Daily Nation, and the Star newspaper, just to keep you up to tabs in regards to what is happening. We'll also be taking a look at what is happening in the world across, of course, numbers going up and high, of COVID-19, as some countries which had actually opened or reopened, forced to go back to that level of, lockdowns and closure, simply because they've not been able to perform very well in terms of reducing the numbers of COVID-19. So we have so much in store for you. Also, we take a look at the political events over the weekend on our current affairs segment. What played out, what will play out. Moving on, the BBI report on standby to be released to the common mwananchi, so that we can all say whether indeed we'll proceed to endorse it or we will say no to it. So always a pleasure to have you joining us, even as we take a look at all this. Thank you so much for your time. We're expecting to have Tabitha Ogutu, who's a youth leader and also a journalist, to join us on the newspaper review segment. But before she comes in, I'll take you through all that, and let's take a look at some of the stories that have been prepared by our team. But most importantly, to remind you that it's important you interact with us. Hashtag, that is a Morning Cafe this Monday morning. And you can as well tweet us on at Linda_Alela, at TV47, our Facebook page. You can stream live TV47 and also stream live on YouTube TV47. We'd be glad to hear some of your comments as we proceed with the show. We want to kick off the day on a very good note. Just to remind you also that we have the Breakfast of the Week segment. We've prepared something small, something simple for you, something that you can prepare in 15 minutes and have your family smiling. So indeed, it's going to be an interesting week as we have so much so in store for you. Welcome aboard once again. Let's first of all take a look at this story that has been prepared by my team. And a section of Kirinyaga MCAs have vowed to move to court to oppose Governor Anne Waiguru's acquittal by the Senate. The MCAs say that Kirinyaga governor, of course, wasn't innocent, and the Senate did not proceed to award justice to the people of Kirinyaga, and they vow that they are going to fight this battle up until they ensure that indeed the boss is ousted. Let's take a look at that.
The county legislature have said they are not relenting in their quest to oust Anne Waiguru. Their sentiments coming a few days after Senate cleared her. The MC are now contemplating moving to court.
The power of the people is much stronger than the people in power. Aluta continua. We promise you full representation that shall ensure you see the fruits you so much desire, including cleaning the malicious county executive we find ourselves with. Neither your deep pockets nor your influence will desist our pursuit of justice for the people of Kirinyaga. So help us God.
Senate Select Committee acquitted Waiguru after the county assembly members failed to link her directly to the allegations leveled against her. The Cleophas Malala-led committee, however, noted that EACC and DCI will require to commence investigations against some county officials.
The Senate ruling laid blame on members of the executive and spared the hand of the governor. Curiously, pointing out that the buck does not stop with the governor. We seek your indulgence going forward to put the staff of the county government on notice. We will be extremely vigilant in our oversight of the entire executive with a keen eye on the headship.
The MCAs insisting that Kirinyaga residents have lost confidence in Waiguru, who was ousted by 23 out of 33 MCAs.
We are well aware that you are yet to face consequences of your action against the people of Kirinyaga. However, nothing can stop an idea whose time has come. Your time to stop lying and stealing from the people of Kenya has come, madam. Justice delayed is justice denied.
Waiguru was facing, among other charges, a violation of procurement laws, amongst other charges, though Waiguru denied all charges. Mwigi William, TV47, Kirinyaga.
All right, we take a look at that later on, of course, what has been captured on the newspapers too. But first of all, let's pick this one. The extended term of the BBI task force expires this Tuesday before handing over its report to President Uhuru Kenyatta, and ODM leader Raila Odinga. Reports, however, indicate that the report will have few changes from the previous report that was launched at the Bomas of Kenya late last year.
The committee led by Senator Yusuf Haji will present its report to President Uhuru Kenyatta and ODM leader Raila Odinga Tuesday. Sources in the task force, however, indicate there will be no much changes from the previous report. The report is likely to retain a powerful president and a deputy president who will be voted directly by the electorates. The president will be head of state and government. However, the controversial prime minister's position might be reintroduced with two deputies. The prime minister will be appointed by the president from the majority party and will be approved by parliament. The steering committee is also said to have settled for half of the cabinet to be picked from members of parliament and the rest from technocrats. The opposition leader, who will have a shadow cabinet, should also sit in parliament. The early report had also proposed the allocation to the counties to be increased to between 35 and 50%. The report further proposed the 47 county to be retained, as well as the 290 constituencies. This is likely to be retained in the upcoming report. And with the introduction of Nairobi Metropolitan Services, the county might be treated differently considering it's the capital city. President Uhuru Kenyatta and ODM leader Raila Odinga have in the past said BBI will cater for the challenges facing Kenyans.
Sasa ni kwa nini mnajaribu kuweka vikwazo? We want the Kenyan people to talk, and that's what the BBI ni hiyo tu. Ni nini? Kama ni mambo ya representation tutengeneze.
Mambo ya BBI hapa Kenya imetushinda kwa sababu hata tujui BBI inasema nini. Ilikuja badala wakae chini wafunze mwananchi wa kawaida inasema nini. Wameenda tu kusema wanataka kwenda referendum, wanataka kukimbia huku na huku, na tuelewi kabisa referendum nini, BBI inasema nini.
Wao wakifanya shughuli ya BBI waweze kuangalia mwananchi wa kawaida. Mwananchi wa kawaida sisi hapa chini tunaumia sana, lakini wao viongozi wao ndio wanashughulikia masuala yao.
ODM leader Raila Odinga is currently out of the country for medication. The report, however, is likely to deepen political rift, with a section of Ruto allies opposing the whole process. Andrine Kilemi for TV47.
Thanks, Andre. Now, many counties are yet to attain the 300 beds capacity as directed by President Uhuru Kenyatta. This even as the COVID-19 tally has hit the 6,000 mark yesterday after 259 new cases were recorded. Mohammed Ali reports.
The government is yet to provide the true status of the COVID-19 infection in State House. This is despite reports that many operations are not being carried out at State House after 4 officials tested positive.
Regarding the situation at State House, and I think there what we're saying is that for all institutions, we are really ensuring that there's a lot of testing. I'm sure you saw last week there was testing at the Ministry of Lands, there's testing happening at Parliament, testing happening in different organizations at the judiciary, and this continues to be the same for all institutions.
The Ministry of Health says that most of the counties have not fulfilled the 300-bed capacity directive after President Uhuru Kenyatta gave county governments a 2-week deadline.
Counties are getting there. Not all counties are ready. We are not at 47 300 bed capacity yet, but some counties have made strides.
Of course, the president directed that each and every county should have a minimum capacity of 300 beds for isolation of COVID-19 cases. progress has been made in this line. And we have just finished a National Emergency Response Committee meeting. We will be able to give you feedback on the information that is coming from the counties.
Dr. Patrick Amoth said that it is the responsibility of every county to give a priority to the health of the elderly with pre-existing conditions in order to prevent them from the pandemic.
But with a focus to be able to shield the elderly and the vulnerable, and we are telling the counties that the resources we have given you, we can be able to map out the elderly people or those with pre-existing conditions so that you can be able to supply them with masks. And because manufacturing or local manufacturing of masks is now taking place at the county level, even cloth-based masks would equally do a good job.
Today, 259 people have been confirmed to be infected with the virus, bringing the total number of COVID-19 cases in the country to 6,070. Muhammad Ali, TV47.
And the Archbishop of Cadbury, Justin Welby, now says the Church of England will review statues at places of worship to determine if they all should be there. Welby has further disputed a belief that Jesus was white, a statement that is likely to elicit mixed
allegedly poisoned by their mother before locking their lifeless bodies in the house. It has now emerged that the woman had written a letter talking about the murder. In a letter that is believed to have been left behind by the suspect, she said that she murdered her 4 kids to cut off the generation link from their family. She further says that she saw it painful bringing up her children, knowing a hard life awaits them, and had she had a stable job, she would not have gone ahead to kill them. The letter states that she would later turn herself to the police officers for murder charges and wish to spend her life in prison to pay for her deeds. According to Jackson Kimani, the brother to the suspect, she worked with an NGO in Naivasha and was made redundant 2 months ago due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic.
Dadangu mkubwa ameua watoto wake. Hatujajua kiini chake ni nini, lakini ni kitu ambayo imetushtua sana. Tulikuwa tunafanya na yeye kazi, lakini sasa tulikuwa tumesimama kidogo sababu ya hili janga la corona.
Andrew Opio, a neighbor, said that the miners were joyful a day before the incident, but he was not only concerned after their house remained closed the following day, but also as to what could have driven the woman to commit such an incident.
Sisi kama jamii pia tulikuwa tunaongeleshana. Mama kama huyu labda alikosa mtu wa kuongelesha, alikosa labda mtu wa kuongea naye, na ndio maana mambo kama yanatokea. So si kama majirani tungeomba, kama tungekuwa ile ya mambo ya nyumba 10 iwekwe vizuri yenye, kama mtu ako na shida anaweza ongea na mwenzake, ili tuweze kujua shida ni nini.
Reporting for TV47, my name is Nanok Lauren.
Well, I do not know how much her excuse is justified, but I would also say, in a way, only a mother understands how painful it is to watch your children going through tough times. But that aside, the 100 days given to the Nairobi Metropolitan Service, that is NMS, has ended with all eyes now turning to Major General Muhammad Badi and the achievements of the new office. Now, this even as he is expected to hand over a report to President Uhuru Kenyatta. Andrin Kilemi with more on this story.
The 100 days ultimatum given to Nairobi Metropolitan Service NMS has lapsed. NMS was put in office by President Kenyatta, with the primary task being to dismantle cartels that have choked City Hall and hindered service delivery. NMS Director General Mohamed Badi is now expected to submit a report to President Uhuru Kenyatta this coming week. However, it has not been a smooth journey for the Badi-led team. This after the Nairobi Governor Mike Mbuvi Sonko threatened to end the Nairobi takeover deal, citing mismanagement by the newly established office.
We are all working for the benefits of Nairobians, so we cannot keep fighting and make Nairobi a battlefield where we are fighting over taxpayers' money. It is quite unfortunate and impossible.
The 4 key functions transferred to NMS include county health services, transport, public works, and county planning and development. During a courtesy call to the County Assembly of Nairobi last week, Badi said the main functions of NMS was to not only achieve presidential directives, but to continue improving the living standards of Nairobi residents. So far, NMS has put up 35 water tanks, completed over 20,000 meters of extension piping, as well as daily distribution of 200,000 liters of water to Nairobi's informal settlements. NMS was also mandated to come up with pedestrian walkways, cycling and pedestrian lanes on a number of streets, which are now in their final stages. However, some observers have termed Badi's achievement as one that was meant to paint a bad image for Governor Sonko's leadership. Andrin Kilemi, reporting for TV47.
And on that note, we of course call it done on the newspaper stories that the paper stories that we had, and it's now time that we cross over to the newspaper review after this short break. Don't you go anywhere. And Morning Cafe is back. Time for newspaper review. Tabitha Ogutu joins me this morning. Tabitha, good morning.
Good morning, Lina.
You're well since we last met?
I'm well.
All right, good to have you. And time for us to take a look at what is on the newspapers. I think I'll be starting with the key newspapers that we have, the front pages and what is captured. We have the Standard newspaper, 4 murder, chilling note under suspect mother. And of course, 4 cheerful siblings summoned to their bedroom and strangled one by one and laid side by side, armed with a confession note. Police, their mother says their mother is a suspect, which is actually confirmed as it now. And looking at that, I think we have captured that story on one of the stories that I've gone through. What do you make of this, sincerely speaking? I know we cannot speak much about it, but this is my opinion. What she says would have pushed her to doing this is that she did not want to see her children grow up in that generational curse and the painful times of life. And as a mother, I would want to say that in a way, I understand her argument. But then again, does it justify, does it warrant her the move to proceed and kill these young babies?
Linda, that story is very saddening. And it only shows how mental health is a crisis at this period of coronavirus pandemic.
Yeah.
I think the mother in question here was going through some things or even a crisis in her life, or she had some thoughts that she could not even share with anybody. So instead of even looking for counseling or even talking out with anybody so that she can find a way forward, then she opted to claim the lives of her children so that she can dislink them from, she said, generational problems and even the hard economic times. So it shows how also coronavirus has played a part in this, because in her statement she said that also the economy so hard. If she only had a job or finance to upkeep her kids, then this would not have been the case.
Pretty much unfortunate, a scenario. And anyway, who are we to judge and who are we to question? We await to see the verdict of the same. And still on the front page of the Standard newspaper, the biggest story, or the big story, Raila scopes Ruto's plum, House slows, and Orange Party goes for the 40 chunks of Jubilee meal on offer after purge on DP allies as NASA ally all wiper settles for the crumbs. Captured on page 6 of the Standard newspaper and a couple of pages also on the news, the Daily Nation and also the People's Daily. But here we are. What do you make of this? And I mean the changes that have been happening within, of course, different parties. The Jubilee purge, I know we've spoken about it, but then again now these reforms are now NASA bagging huge. What does it speak? And also Kalonzo Musyoka, in as much as the Standard would consider this as crumbs, at least has gotten or has bagged something, especially right now that we're having a looming cabinet reshuffle talk.
I think that this only means that there will be a lot in terms of how the political parties will be realigning ahead of 2022 elections. And therefore, even moving forward, we are expecting even more change in politics and even in internal party affairs. So coming up over, or even the purging in NASA and even in Jubilee subsequently, is only a pointer towards the political parties realigning for 2022 and what we should expect. So we expect more of that moving forward, but also we expect other parties to come up like what we have seen in the recent times, yes.
All right, this will be forming basis of our discussion this morning, a couple of other stories on matters politics. But that aside, as President Uhuru Kenyatta has kept off the House in the Hill after COVID-19 cases were reported, it's panic in Parliament and COVID-19 strikes members of Parliament, as has been captured on page 10 of the Standard newspaper. And here we are. It says that fingered as one of the weak links in fight against the virus, that is, members schemed and counter-schemed political plots. The whole of June and now, COVID-19 has struck at the core of the House, sending legislatures into panic. That has been captured on page 10 of the Standard newspaper. And yes, the fear is real and the trouble is real, even as we're talking at a situation whereby we'd see President Uhuru Kenyatta helping us reopen. And he maintains that this can only be possible based on how well the counties will perform.
Yeah, we saw it when he had these meetings with the county governors late the other week. and he said that for us to reopen the economy, then it solely relies on the county government's preparedness on how they will deal with the new cases of coronavirus that will rise as a result of opening the economy. And also, it also goes back to us as citizens. How will we, or how willing are we to adhere to the rules that were put in place by the Ministry of Health? Therefore, the county government has a part to play. It's so saddening that even up to date, we talk about counties which do not have the bed capacities to deal with the coronavirus patients or even the cases that keep rising in their counties. So it shows that we have a long way to go in terms of preparedness in the counties for us to even see that the economy reopens and things go back to normal. Yes.
And speaking of which, the Daily Nation captures that on the front page. Finally, end of virus lockdown is in sight, and they say the telltale signs on the day are here, days after President Uhuru Kenyatta said that domestic flights would resume soon, and the health boss or the bosses hint that a possibility of opening up the country, saying counties have likely met the conditions set for removal of restrictions, captured on page 8, and this is according to yesterday's redress. We'll also be taking a look at that, also captured on the other newspapers, and it has been, yes, like I said, it has been captured on page 8. Without delving much into the same, we can only wait and see what President Uhuru Kenyatta will capture or what he will say in regards to the same, even as the infections continue to rise. Yesterday, we had 259 cases reported, and of course, shooting the number to the 6,000 mark, which is pretty much unfortunate. The surge is higher and higher. And also on the front page of the Daily Nation, the biggest stories, one of the stories actually, Mohisa's recent entry into Ford Kenya fray points political comeback. That has been captured on page 4. We'll be delving deep into understanding this on the discussion of the day. You know, the numerous people who are now realigning themselves in regards to matters politics, just to see to it that they are able to successfully get their way or sail through into matters politics. Now, the forgotten people of Laikipia. Another interesting story captured here. Welcome to Laikipia North constituencies, where a half of the people have never set foot in a classroom. How did such a vast, fertile area get left behind? That's an interesting one right there. I do not know how this is possible, but anyway, let's cross over to this talk on matters BBI. We have also captured that on our stories, and BBI report ready and now prepare for referendum. We know very well that the deadline hits on a Tuesday. What do you make of this BBI talk that is ongoing?
We are very expectant of the BBI report and what it will contain. But you know, as per now, we know that the BBI has a lot of reforms, and there is that question of if we have the presidency or the presidential position still as a suggestion in the BBI. So we expect many changes in the BBI, including the changes in the women rep representative being scrapped off. We also have the suggestion or content in the BBI that suggests that we have an election of 2 senators per county, so that we do away with the 20 women positions in the Senate. You know, there's a lot to expect from this, including also the latest development that says there will be a position of a prime minister, a non-executive prime minister, with 2 deputies and a hybrid system of governance altogether. So we are looking forward for it. And also we do not know if they had time to complete all they were filing and stuff because the coronavirus interfered with the process. So let us see what the BBI will have for us come Tuesday. Yes.
All right, as one has it, there are likelihoods that this report is going to be a little bit different from the initial one that was launched at that time in the Bomas. And we can only wait to see what the Haji Lej team has in store for us, captured on page 5 of the Daily Nation. And push for early handover of SGR's tolls. And this one has been captured on the back page of the Daily Nation. Government has been quietly pushing for Kenya Railways to take over the operations. As they push for this, they also push to take over operations of KQ. What do you make of this? I mean, at some point in time, there's been an argument, Tabitha, that it is even best to privatize some of these key sections or sectors that are held by the government, because it seems like the government is not doing justice to them. But this is contrary to what we see today.
Yes. For a long time, there have been problems with the parastatals. that are managed by the government. And SGR is one case, and also KQ. So privatizing SGR and handing it over to the Kenya Railways only means that the government is failing in management of the same. And therefore, if the handing over of SGR or the KQ for Kenya Railways will help in management and also improvement of what goes on in such parastatus, then it only means that that is a very good idea. And therefore the government should embrace it and ensure that the management is also, made to be effective and efficient.
Right. This even as, of course, lots of questions mark have been placed on the head of the SGR on how legit and whether indeed it was genuine towards ensuring that we transform the transport industry of the country. Another story that has been captured here now, Ruto ally alleges that Jubilee funds grab and demand for transparency. Jubilee Deputy Secretary General and Deputy President William Ruto's de facto spokesman Caleb Kositani demands an audit on the party's financial books, alleging that massive fraudulent activities have been conducted. It's interesting how parties still do not, come out open in regards to the funds that are awarded to them. We know that NASA coalition has had issues for the longest of time. ODM claiming that they are the biggest brothers. I mean, they actually literally took everything to do with, what would have been considered as funds for the NASA coalition. So it's pretty much complicated with the parties. Do you suppose then that they fail to have proper structures set towards ensuring that they take good care of the monies that have been awarded to them?
Yes, I think that the parties themselves not have structures in place to ensure that the funds that are awarded to them are properly utilized and put into the correct use and made resourceful. And therefore that calls for it. If we can have such debate in parties of embezzlement of funds, then this shows how outstretched this situation is even to the country as a whole. And therefore it calls for a need for accountability even in the parties, and also for proper audits and presentation of the same.
Yes, and indeed, he proposes an audit. Let's wait and see what will play out. And to the Star, this is what is captured on the front page of the Star newspaper, still on that story of murder of the 4 kids, pretty much unfortunate, and captured on page 2. And another story, and unique, different from what we've seen on the front pages of other newspapers, ailing Mzee Kibaki, who's 88 at City Hospital. Ex-president is in the care of a team of doctors at the Nairobi hospital. This has been captured on page 4 and page 5. But he's not really been well for a long right now, and I think we can only wish him well.
Yes, we can wish him well, definitely. And we hope that he gets better even as we are fighting the coronavirus pandemic. We hope that he keeps safe and, he makes it out of the hospital well.
All right. Yes, we can only wish for that. And this story here, I don't know how well we are able to get that. Aside from that story is that there's joy as students stranded in Sudan flown back to the country, flown back home, captured on page 3. I think you saw this yesterday. And indeed, it was very interesting to see. And even if you're coming home to 14 days quarantine or even 21 days quarantine, it just feels good to be home, right?
Yes, it's
long overdue.
It's quite an interesting story right there, and how they were so joyful and they were happy to be in Kenya. Most definitely to be reunited with their families. And therefore we can only hope that they are taken to quarantine so that we cannot have the cases of coronavirus keep going up every now and then. So we hope that they are safe and in quarantine, and after that they can be able to join with their family.
Right. Okay, and another story right here, multi-billion Langata homes marked for demolition. Where does one go from here? This is like sending retirees to their early grave, because such news can worsen their medical condition. And this has been captured right here. And this aspect of demolitions, sometimes you ask yourself, at what point then does it get to that point where someone will put up structures without following due process? This is on the rise. Why is it so?
It's a very worrying situation. The other day I was watching in the news, and I saw there were evictions that were set to take place at Mau Forest again. And then that makes you wonder, these people who build houses and structures in those places, they claim that they have the title deeds, and the title deeds obtained from the government department in charge of land. And how now is it possible that they claim again that these people obtained the lands illegally? So it's an issue that needs to be really addressed well, because individuals are suffering and they're losing a lot of money out of demolitions. It's not a very good thing to the economy as it is also, and also it really affects the life and income of so many individuals. So it's an issue that needs to address, because you cannot say that one time you got the title deed legally, you know, from the ministry in charge of land, and right now you're being told that you have the land illegally. So what is the big question here? Who is in charge, or who is after these people?
True. I agree to that. And as we wind up on the Star newspaper, I think also this has been captured right here on the front page and expounded more on page 11, Inside Kenyatta's Strategy to Rescue Kenya Airways. And that aside, there's a report that is pretty much heartbreaking, and HIV patients skip their medication for lack of food. This has been captured on page 25. COVID-19, you know, issues that have come aboard in regards to the same, and people grappling to survive. Now, this extends to a point whereby, number one, we've seen people not wanting to go to hospital for fear of course, getting COVID-19. But also, this is quite unfortunate, a report coming out. And it's not just in the case of people with HIV and AIDS, but actually it cuts across different people who have lifestyle conditions, who have, you know, communicable diseases, and they're not able to get what it is that they would want in terms of care, in terms of, you know, proper nutrition, and actually in terms of matters of medication also.
Yes, it's a very saddening situation and a story right there. When you cannot be able to take drugs as an HIV patient because you do not have food. It also gives us the idea that there are also other patients of HIV that do not have the drugs in themselves. And that is what we need to address as a country, because as we said the other week, that the government needs to narrow down to matters that affects its citizens. So if the government provides free drugs to the HIV patients, how about they also look into ways of making sure that they have food available for them every time they go for these drugs, or through the community workers, they can be able to allocate where they're situated and provide for them food so that they cannot miss on drugs. Because if they miss taking their drugs, you know what awaits them. You know, they might just lose their lives like that. And therefore, if you want to fight this pandemic, coronavirus, successfully and not get into another pandemic, then it calls for a need for the country and for the government to deal with the internal matters that are really of critical issues, and they need to be addressed with seriousness they concern. It's a very serious matter. It's a very serious matter.
All right, I agree. And now let's cross over to the People's Daily. Speaking of which, we are at that note of Corona. Up your game on Corona counties told. And despite increasing number of COVID-19 cases, the ministry says it has done well on testing and treatment, captured on page 8 of the People's Daily, still capturing the numbers. Just a reminder is that 258 cases were recorded positive as of yesterday, and now we hit the 6,070 mark. Total cases now 1,971, recovered 143 deaths, and 165,196 people have been tested so far. 2,718 people were tested for us to attain that number, or maybe to record that 259 cases that were reported as of yesterday. So we can only hope that indeed what you've said will be looked into by the government. And small counties to lose cash in CRA proposal, and these are the winners and the losers. Fireworks are expected when senators meet to discuss a new revenue sharing formula which uses population as basis to calculate funds allocation, giving big devolved units more funds. This has been captured on page 4, and not most of the counties will accept to this. We have a list of some of them who are going to be the big winners and others who are going to be more of losers. So counties that are likely to gain: Nairobi, and of course Nakuru, and Kakamega, Bungoma, Kiambu, Uasin Gishu. Nairobi is set to get 5.3 billion, Nakuru 3.1 billion, Kakamega 2.1 billion, Kiambu 1.3 billion, Uasin Gishu 923 million. And also the counties that are likely to be on the losing end Mandera, which is set to receive 2.09 billion. But actually, that's pretty much okay. Well, this is in comparison to what was there last time. Wajir is also bound to lose Mombasa, Kwale, Marsabit, Kilifi, and Garissa. This captured on a different. That is page 4 of the People's Daily. Let's take a look at that. And here we are. And small counties to lose in revenue sharing. I mean, this balancing of the budget, not just at the level of the counties, but actually across even to the national government, has been something that, you know, has a lot of issues in within. Is it because we do not know how to play with our papers well?
Yeah, it calls for questioning again. Since the onset of devolution, there were mechanisms and that were put in place to ensure that the revenues were divided according to the need of a county. And therefore, even as the government thinks of cutting the revenue to some small counties, it should also be considerate of the needs of the counties. A county can be a small county depending on the population, but the needs are also quite high. Poor infrastructure is there, and also even you see the health system in such places are wanting. So how about we look at the needs of the counties individually rather than looking at the population and underlying or undermining the fact that the needs may be so many that if you look at a county in terms of smallness or the bigness, you may not be able to address fully the needs of these counties in a way that will ensure that economy and even the structures that are in place develop and the people of these counties, benefit from the same.
So this is 8, and lots of complaints coming from governors or leaders from these counties that are bound to lose, and they argue that this is not fair and the balancing needs to consider so much so apart from just the numbers in terms of matters, population, regional, of course, areas. I mean the bigness, of course, or the big aspect of a county is also something that they need to look into, and a couple of other issues in terms of matters development. Some counties still lagging behind, and the argument is that it becomes hard for them to catch up with the rest of the counties if monies that are channeled towards them are as little in comparison to the others, of course, with these other counties. And also still on the same, like I said, the captured on page 6, MPs fall treasury on budget gaps and documents. Parliament fears that ministry will borrow more to finance supplementary budgets to augment expenditure, which is something that is actually bound to happen. And remember, the CS for Treasury is saying that this time around they are going to look for long-term loans that will be paid, of course, in small amounts that are not going to throw us off the balance. But just how genuine will this be, and would it be meaning a question or a situation whereby sometimes you come and cause trouble because you know very well that by the time this trouble brews and becomes something worse, you will not be at the helm. So pressing concern is the Treasury disregarded Parliament's resolutions when preparing the 11.89 billion, that is the 2019-2020 supplementary 3 budget, which was hurriedly presented before the Parliament last Wednesday, 7 days before the end of the current financial year. And members of Parliament fear that Kenya will not meet the 2019-2020 budget financing targets owing to the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic on the economy. Let's come back to the front page and see what other story has been captured. And here's an interesting story. Not really interesting. Well, we are grateful that for once there's some sign towards, ensuring that we see the big wigs are facing the law after, being involved in matters of corruption. And Waluke Wahungu keen in fronting efforts to raise the 2.1 billion. This has been expounded on page 2 of the People's Daily. What comes out here is that indeed, yes, you saw what happened, of course, over the weekend. Waluke's wife coming out to, call upon well-wishers to try and raise some money so that she'd be able to pay the fine or the bond for the husband. But here we are looking at Wahungu, whose frantic bid to raise 2 billion. And Wahungu has done so well in terms of trying to raise this. And, pictures of how much she comes from a well-endowed family are out here.
Yes, yes. And on this matter, this is a very interesting matter, if I can say that. The cost of corruption is so high that if you are to take part in corruption, especially embezzlement of public funds, and the law was to be followed like what we are seeing in Waluhe case, you know, it's quite discouraging for those people.
Right.
And therefore, I would say that these people, they should not be given, bail directly like that. First of all, they should be allowed some time to serve in the prisons, even some months.
Yeah.
Then they can be allowed to be bailed out. Because you see, from what you're telling me, the individual concerned here, the family is able to raise money, and there is a history of even her family being in politics in the previous years.
Yeah.
And therefore, money for them is not a problem. They just have a family lunch, and then in the family lunch, they do a fundraising, and she'll be out. And will she have learned her lesson, like what we want them to do? And therefore, government needs to come up with other ways of ensuring that these people, they are all accountable, and at the same time, they face the long arm of the law.
Bails and bonds are constitutional, one would argue, and probably this makes it a right for them to be able to be awarded that. I mean, when you look at such a scenario, does it then mean that maybe we need to review some of these clauses that are enshrined in the Constitution?
Most definitely, we need to review some of these clauses that are enshrined in the Constitution, especially in this coming referendum. Let us see some of these. Especially...
Do you declare that we already are going to have a referendum? It's a deal.
It's a deal. The
going to be forced down or
Yes, yes. Referendum is going to come most definitely, and these are some of the things that we need to see in the referendum, because we need the measures that are put in place to fight corruption to be so stringent that even when you think of embezzling public funds, because it's one of the major corrupt cases that we normally have in this country, you cannot even do it.
Right, that's more like it. And right here, interestingly, like you said, a fundraising, and boom, they're able to raise as much as probably what is needed, and they'll be out here walking scot-free. Then what happens to recover your funds? I mean, what happens to that fleecing of the taxpayer? And what happens again to the fight against corruption that we are all out here trying to ensure that it is a success? So that aside, let's take a look at this story also on that very page. And COG is set to meet over impeachment, and the Council of Governors will meet this week to discuss the arising cases of impeachment motions against most bosses or most county bosses. What does it speak of this? And do you also have a feeling that maybe there's so much that is being done towards pushing the women leadership or the women bosses out? And is it a way of sabotaging them, or it is genuine that there's need for us to address these issues that have been captured?
Linda, I would want us to look at this issue of impeachment of even the female leaders in the gubernatorial position this way. That even as you're a governor and you're a woman leader, you are equally responsible for whatever thing you do in that position. So since the onset of devolution, there have been a lot of cases that are arising from the governors not taking charge of their offices, and also just gross violation of the offices and the law given to them. And therefore, if you are found guilty or you are found to be of gross violation of the office, it doesn't exclude you from just going through the process. If your people express the fact that they're not satisfied with your leadership, then you should go back and ask yourself why. At the same time, we need to be considerate of the fact that all the alleged or the accusation that are always put forward for these female leaders, some of them, like we saw in the case of Waiguru, came out as with no basis, and therefore the MCAs should not use the powers that they have that were given to them to make the life of the governors miserable, especially the female governors. And I remember Honorable Mutula Kilonzo Jr. saying in the parliament the other day when they were passing the impeachment motion against Anne Waiguru, said that the MCAs should stop just using their powers to, you know, make operations of the county governors hard. You remember the case of One Waiguru.
Yeah.
One of the things that Hannah Waiguru was alleging was the fact that these MCAs in Kirinyaga County wanted their offices to new offices, and they needed to be refurbished, you know. And she was saying that this will hit too much in the county funds, and therefore she could not give it to them. And because she could not give to so many of the demands that the MCA were having, then the MCAs thought there was a need to impeach her, which was not in a good in a constitutional ground. So we should put our interests aside. If you want to impeach a governor, let it be that she has grossly violated the constitution or something that is closely related to that. Yes.
We delve deep into that discussion also in our current affairs discussion as Waiguru seeks to get a truce with the MCAs who have proceeded to court on their impeachment bid, and also on Charity Kaluki Ngilu. MCAs will not rest until Ngilu is out. This is what they have said. So we'll understand more on that as we get to discuss. And coming over to a different story right here. Now we are away from the main pages and to page 7 of the People's Daily. ODM Wiper senators lined up for crucial House seats. I think we've picked on that on the previous newspapers reviews, and here it is. We can only wait to see what will play out in regards to the same, and we see whether indeed these leaders are going to get whatever it is that they're going to get. And in the event that there are changes on the cabinet, will it be justified in the first place, and what do you expect of it?
The changes in the cabinet will be justified depending on the motive and the constitutional reforms that makes these changes possible. It should not just be changes out of personal interest of the people in the government, but it should be because, for example, if a cabinet secretary was to be reshuffled, then what is the reason behind it? And therefore, it should be a reason that makes it appealing or makes it possible for this cabinet secretary to be reshuffled or to be moved out of office. I was seeing in the BBI report that the parliament, or rather one of the content in it was that the CS or the cabinet secretaries will be elected from the members of parliament, so that the claims behind this, or the reason behind it, is because there is always delay in implementation of so many processes that relates to the cabinet or the ministries that we have in the country, because the cabinet secretaries are not within the parliament or in the National Assembly. And therefore, even the Speaker of the National Assembly said that this was a very great move. So even the changes in cabinet secretaries of late, or even moving forward, let us see them being constitutional and that which will have the interest.
And as the argument would go, it becomes easier for them to achieve what it is that is expected of them in the event that they are more of technocrats and equally politicians, because you see that, yes, there was that talk that we maybe need to focus much on getting technocrats, that it has become very hard for them to be able to achieve this, especially when they're dealing with the politicians. And of course, in the argument, according to Irungu Kangata, he says that this is bound to strengthen the handshake even more. We'll clearly see how this will manifest prominently in regards to ensuring that unity is felt, not just to the people, but even at the level of leadership. And an interesting story also right here. KICD puts publishers on red alert for textbook errors, and the publishers selected to supply competence-based curriculum and learning materials for grade 5 were yesterday cautioned against releasing substandard books to the market. And even before I delve deep into that, like honestly, why is it that we've had these cases where we get substandard material for our students out here? I mean, does it mean that someone is sleeping in their jobs? That is, do they have to be reminded that they need to bring in on board, good books and, books of standard? And is there no due diligence that is conducted before these books are disseminated out there for the consumption of the students?
Like you said, somebody is definitely sleeping on their jobs here, because we have seen a lot of reviews of the books. Every time they have an error, and that only means that, for example, if a biology textbook has an error, that means that these biology books have to be reviewed, all of them. What does this mean? It hits into the finances of the Ministry of Education, which would have been used to, you know, develop or even make better other structures or sectors of the education. So it calls for a need for these people to be more keen with what they do, and you know, the people involved in writing or printing the books needs to be also keen enough so that we do not have these errors every now and then. This is something that is so unfathomable, you know. It's unimaginable, and it's not something that we want to recommend to happen moving forward. Something ought to change, or even we can change the management or the people who are involved in this process altogether, because we need to see that we have books that are up to date. And you know, for example, Linda,
yes, once
you give a textbook to a child and it has error in it, the child reads it. After reading it is when you discover that this book has an error. Now you have fed error into these students, and therefore that's a damage to them already. So it calls that even the people involved in the process before the books are published, let them be scrutinized and checked properly, and therefore we have the best coming out as textbook for our children to read. Yes.
In total agreement to that. File in Ngong Road Forest, land missing. Fresh twist emerges after state moves to reclaim parcel grabbed by private developers with KFC surveyor accused of misleading. Ngong Road saga indeed shows that documents from the DCI indicate that the land was registered on the 4th, 11th, 1999 under a leasehold of 99 years. And in 1932, when the forest land was gazetted, the area measured 7,239 acres. After independence in 1964, when the forest was declared a central forest, the land had shrunk to 3,722.5 acres after several excisions. And this is quite unfortunate. We will not delve deep into this Langata Ngong Road saga, but then again, just looking at an overview or painting a picture of what has generally been happening, you know, cases that are still in court, and you find that, you know, the evidence has been altered with. So when we're talking about file in Ngong Road Forest missing, land missing, then it begs the question as to how genuine and how fast we can be able to have the wheels of justice, you know, grinding on ensuring that some of these cases are dealt with pretty much fast. Because in as much as they are slow, sincerely speaking, we've witnessed so much of altering of evidence.
Yes, and it's very saddening, if I can say so, because how do you say that files of a land, of a public land, is missing, and yet the people who have the lands or even who have built in such lands have title deeds to those lands? So what does this say to us? It only says that there is lack of accountability in these places, and there is ill behind the whole narrative of land evictions and the files missing for the Ngong, you know, the Ngong land saga. So there is something that needs to be done. We cannot be having people suffering and people's rights being violated like that, because if somebody legally obtained a piece of land, and right now you're saying that the files for the same lands are missing, and they got them from the Ministry of Land of Kenya. How does this say about even the file management and keeping, record tracking for the government ministries? You know, it brings a question of lack of accountability and poor management, if I can say.
Right, that's pretty much unfortunate. And to a rather, I would want to say, progressive story. In Africa, Malawi became second country in Africa to nullify presidential votes after Kenya, and the court invalidated the election over voting of fraud and altered ballots, and then officially they went for that second time election, and finally they were able to elect the opposition leader. And President Uhuru Kenyatta said that the opposition leader, that is Chakwera's win, was an expression of confidence that the people of Malawi had, of course, elected a new president, and that would mean that indeed Africa is now experiencing change, and times are not as they would have been. Right Honorable Raila Odinga commended the outgoing Malawi President Peter Mutharika for creating an environment for a peaceful and orderly transfer of power. And very many leaders have come out to congratulate the incoming president. As it stands right now, what do you make of this event, in as much as we're also going to delve deep into understanding whether this has changed the talk of matters politics in Africa?
This is one of the stories I was really waiting for, Linda. It's quite a happy moment for Africa as a continent, because for 1 minute we've seen that democracy has been upheld. If you look at the history of Malawian elections, when they elected, they did the election last year, May, and there were cases of we said there were rigging of elections and also malpractices in the election, and therefore the outcome of the election was nullified. And therefore, when this case was taken to court, it took some time, because just the other day is when Malawi had its second election, which gave the opposition leader Lazarus the win as the new president of Malawi. So what this says for us, even as a continent, even as a people, is that there is also hope. There is always hope in our judiciary, because the judiciary in Kenya, for example, in 2017 also nullified the presidential election, and this makes Kenya and Malawi, two countries in Africa, to have nullified the presidential elections. And what is different in this case is the fact that in Malawi the opposition won. Right. And therefore, it only means that the people of Malawi, I saw them, they're very happy, because you see, Lazarus gained 58% of total vote of the people of Malawi. It means that they had hopes and confidence in his leadership. And therefore, it's a very good moment and a happy moment for these people. And all we can say is, congratulations once again, Lazarus.
Indeed, congratulations to him. We delve deep into that conversation, taking a look at whether indeed there is a wind of change in Africa. We've seen Magufuli at some point in time being able to sail through on matters, of course, politics as the opposition leader in Tanzania. That was commendable, or that was a huge step towards making that a change. And we also are staring at an election in Uganda and seeing the merging of Bobi Wine and Kizza Besigye coming together. We need to know whether indeed they are going to give Museveni a run for his money. So we await on that, and we discuss more later on the broadcast, even as Kenneth, that is Peter Kenneth, says that he's ready to work with Jubilee. In this case, there's a bit of confusion, because he says that he supports President Uhuru Kenyatta's move to purge on members of parliament who are not doing well in terms of pushing the agenda of Jubilee, pushing the agenda of the Big Four. And of course, also at a point in time, talks that he is likely to work with the deputy president. So it's a bit of confusing talk right here. But then again, we'll also delve deep into that as we expound more on matters of politics. And as we wind up on this, I think it's only fair that we take a look at the newspaper, at the cartoon edition, but not before we touch on this story. Matiang'i says that I must not ignore police brutality. During the first joint press conference that was onset on coronavirus in Kenya, Inspector General of Police Hilary Mutyambai was asked about the possibility of a zealous security officers going overboard in their efforts to implement the curfew. And of course, as declared by the government, Mutyambai's curt response was that leave it to me. Kenyans left it to him, and the Russells have been a litany of mayhem visited on most, or mated on most innocent Kenyans. But Matiang'i now brings a different picture to it. Do you suppose then that how we know him, we're going to have some level of a change in regards to this?
For a long time, since the onset of COVID-19, we've been waiting for Matiang'i to speak against police brutality. And the fact that he's come out to speak against it is quite a moment for us as Kenyans. What we need to do now, to see now from him, is actions. We are tired of talks. We've seen leaders coming out and saying that the police brutality is something that is not acceptable. But what is it that is done to them as police, who take the laws in their hand and make the life of citizens miserable? So I hope, Matiang'i has a very good track record in terms of dealing with issues, especially of public concern. And therefore, we have some hope that these police officers, whom are found to have used excessive force and also have taken law into their and made or claimed even the lives of so many citizens. It's so saddening to see every day how people are crying and mourning because they have lost their loved ones out of police brutality. People who are supposed to, defend and protect people's lives are the people who are endangering our lives. So where are we going as a country if we continue speaking the same language, especially with our defense system? So Matiang'i needs to really work on this and get on this and make sure, even for those families whom have lost their family members or even their loved ones out of police brutality get justice out of it, and the police in charge to be taken to the court of law and charged.
Indeed, and as we always remind ourselves also, it is important that we also be careful on how we also deal with the police, because in as much as they're policemen, they are first human beings, and any other human's life matters. So that aside, last one on the newspaper review. Later on, we'll be taking a look at what is happening on the international scene. That is later on the broadcast towards the last laps. But here we are, the cartoon edition, still on Waiguru, and a picture of how the MCAs have just asked themselves, instead of focusing on Waiguru, who's sitting pretty and comfortable, and even as they say that they're going to take this to the level of the court and they're going to ensure that they see to it that they impeach Waiguru, it looks like it's not going to be an easy one for them, looking at how they have asked themselves down or stood themselves down, and so is right on top of them a clear indication that, well, this is not going to be a successful battle for them, should they proceed to just let go of it and anyway decide to agree to that call by Waiguru for a truce.
When during the ongoing proceeding of Waiguru's impeachment, I remember her saying that the MCA say that they will impeach her 9 times. So she has 9 times impeachment, motions.
The 9 lives of Waiguru, so to speak. I think she's already survived like 2, 3.
She survived.
Yeah.
She's going on strong. But then this makes us question also the MCA's motives behind this. Because if you can tell somebody point blank that you will be impeached, we make sure that you impeach 9 times. So for 9 times, you always have to appear in the committee so that we hear about how you have grossly violated the constitution and all the allegations that they had against Waiguru. And therefore, this is not something that we want to see moving forward. We need to see governors working, so you need to give them an environment that is conducive for them to work and deliver. And if you have any internal affairs that you see that are a bit problematic within the counties, then it's only fair that you use the mechanisms in place, because I believe they are there. And impeachment is not one of them. And as you say, that it's a good idea that the MCAs should have a truce with the governor, because they cannot manage to work ununified. It's very important for the county. We should put the county interest first. And when you talk about putting the county interest first, we mean that the people of Kirinyaga comes first before your leadership positions. And therefore, service to the people is what is most important, even as we perform on devolution tasks. And therefore, the governor and the MCAs, I think they should come together and form a truce.
All right, there forward. You go. You can't beat them, you join them. Or, of course, in this case, I do not know who's joining the other, because clearly it is the MCAs that cannot beat Waiguru. Maybe they might just need to join her and work together for the sake of the growth of the county. On that note, we wind up with the newspaper review. Morning Cafe takes a short break, and we'll be coming back with the discussion. Remember, it's important that you interact with us. Hashtag Morning Cafe at TV47 at Linda_Alela. We'll be sampling some of your comments as we proceed. Thank you so much, Tabitha. We see you on the next segment.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Morning Cafe, time for the current affairs segment. We take a look at the politics of the day, and also we'll be delving deep into seeing what is on the international scene. But coming to the politics of the day, so much so is taking center stage, and joining me is a member of the County Assembly, that is Kiambu Ward, Anthony Konya Mwaniki. Mheshimiwa, good morning.
Good morning, how are you?
Yes, Mheshimiwa is joining us on Skype, as you can see, and we still have Tabitha Gutu, who's a youth leader, who's also a journalist and advocate of social issues. Thank you so much for your time once again, Tabitha.
Thank you.
All right, and of course we kick off directly on the politics of the day. We are yet to receive the BBI reports. The deadline is set for tomorrow. Mheshimiwa, what is your expectation?
Yes. I think from what you've said and what we've had, one, we're very much aware that the right honorable Prime Minister, is also out of the country. So they could seek for an extension, which I do not necessarily think is because they're not finished with issues. It's only that we have a premier who is not around the country. So I am seeing a situation of where I'm even privy to some information that we're seeking for an extension for about a month, so that we set the systems in place so we can have now the report being received.
All right, what is your expectation? Yes. At this time around, I know, Tabitha, you've already told us what you would expect. But then again, we had the reports, we had different proposals, we have very many Kenyans, being asked to give their suggestions so far. And there's still a lot of confusion. And we actually have had, at some point in time, people debating the BBI, even before we see the report. So every other person saying what it is that they expect. We're talking about this situation of change of the system of governance. I mean, what more do you expect incorporated in the report, so at least we'd feel as Kenyans that indeed this is a report that is centered towards improving our lives? Tabitha.
But to that end, yes,
it's okay.
I can tell you that we expect to have an expansion of government. That is something that I can tell you for sure is coming. We are most likely going to have a powerful premier, we're going to have a president, we're going to have a deputy prime minister, and we're going to have an expanded cabinet. And then we're going to also, again, I think the report is also going to look at what you call regional government, which is what the governors will get in the second term are looking forward to. So there's quite a lot that we expect to look at. But my worry is the worst that we can do is to do a document that is meant to create seats for some people and not necessarily reduce the burden that we've been saying. For example, we are living in very hard economic times as a country, and we need to have a document that is going to scale down on expenses as a country. So I'm looking at they will try to have some checks and balances in terms of how much as a country spend in terms of the political movement. So I am seeing a scenario where we may do away with all nominated MCAs and most and very minimal nominated. We'll have very minimal nominated members of parliament, and so I'm trying to look at them. Even as they expand the top, even as they try to create positions that may include everyone. I'm also seeing a situation where they will reduce the number of members of parliament, reduce the number of nominated members of county assembly members, so that money is now used up there as opposed to adding. I'm also seeing a situation where we'll have members of parliament becoming ministers within the government. There's at no extra, apart from a few allowances that we get it. But basically, that's what I'm saying.
All right, and let's look in Tabitha. I mean, that is more of what expectations are in terms of the leadership, the changes on matters leadership, but also on the issues that affect the common mwananchi. Then one would want to imagine what is it that the BBI is going to front that is going to ensure that it helps us, address issues to do with perennial tough times when it comes to matters elections like they had promised, and numerous of issues that continue to bedevil us as a country. Tabitha.
Yes, most definitely this is a question that we are concerned with, and many people are asking how will the BBI report entail or come up with ways that will help in curbing the perennial election malpractices and the situation we have been seeing in the previous election periods. So one time we see that the BBI report says that they need to do away with the female or the women or the female representation, especially at the National Assembly. That is doing away with the 47 members of the county who are women representatives. And they claim by doing this, they are reducing the budget or making it, making the country to be able to put up with the economic hard times that we are having. I don't think this is a very good idea, because at the end of the day, we cannot challenge the fact that women leadership is still something that we are dealing with, and women are not having the same opportunities like the male leaders have. And therefore, if at all we are going to have a referendum, and this is going to be one of the things that we have to debate about, then I think there should be a consideration into how they go about the whole issue of doing away with the position of the women representative or even the women leadership, because at the end of the day, the 2/3 gender rule is a rule that was passed by the Parliament of Kenya, and it is a law. And then we should not also, during the whole process of BBI reports and debates and things like that, they should also ensure that they uphold the constitutional requirements and what it speculates, especially matters relating to the female leadership and the 2/3 gender rule, yes.
All right, lots of issues are cropping up, and we have seen the BBI coming out to face off the Punguza Mizigo that was crafted by the likes of Ukuru Aukot. Do you suppose then that we're going to have a better document that will outshine what was presented in the Punguza Mizigo, Mheshimiwa?
No, and the privilege of looking at the Punguza Mizigo document, it came to the Assembly, and the Kiamukuru Assembly was very clear in as far as that document was concerned. So we voted it out. And I have seen a situation where we may have better document in terms of, if you look at what Punguza Mizigo had, it was social in terms of looking at the needs Kenyans had. But I'm looking at a situation where maybe the BBI report would come in with a lot of economic, it shall be looking at issues to do with farming, issues to do with coffee and what have you, issues that revolves around lifestyles and what have you, national cohesion and all those things. That was something that was not really addressed by the Punguza Mizigo. As much as it came up with some very radical proposals to reducing the economic burden, so it's important to look at. I think the BBI report has consulted far and wide, and I think it's going to come with quite a number of proposals that will look into the economic issues that Kenyans go through. What I anticipate is that we shall be looking at issues to do with infrastructure, issues to do with agriculture, issues to do, all the economic factor, all the economic pillars of our economy shall be looked at by BBI. So I want to just, against all odds, that has been good, because I remember I attended one of the meetings that where the team had come to seek for views from the members of the public. And some of the things that we came up with are real economic solutions that we think we should have. But just coming back to what do you call it, has just said,
Tabitha. In
terms of looking at, yes, Tabitha, yes. In terms of looking at women issues, I think I will lead to what she said. Yeah. It is really important that we do not touch those things. The 2/3 gender rule is something that all of us give ourselves. Something that as a country we struggle to get to where we are. So that space that women should have should not be tampered with and should not be interfered with. And it's a fact that when you get into the political murky waters and mud and whatever, women will not be equal players with men. So we need to have some seats reserved for them so that they may come in and bring in issues to do with women and the girl child, and they have a lot of wealth that exists within there exists a lot of wealth in women, and we need to bring it on board. But when we allow now us to have a situation where we send them into competition with men, politics is a murky game, is a lot of mud with it that comes with it. So I think it's important that we have something for women, that we maintain the 2/3 gender rule that we give ourselves.
All right, that's interesting. And I mean, we are staring at a scenario where not everyone, appreciates that there's need for us to go for a referendum, Mheshimiwa. And we'd argue that, yes, we still have a constitution that has not been implemented. Not even a quarter of it has been implemented. What are the likelihoods that we're going to present a better, constitution in the BBI? And what are the likelihoods that, again, the very same leaders are going to proceed to ensure that the BBI BBI is implemented. Remember, we still have the same faces that were there to endorse or, to not to endorse the 2010 constitution, and we had it, and indeed everyone was out here, we voted for it, but sadly enough, we've not been able to achieve anything that it gives.
Linda, interestingly enough, I belong to that school of thought. I think we do not need a referendum anytime soon. I belong to the school of thought that believes that we have a constitution that we gave ourselves, that is in 2010, that we have not implemented. I also believe that, when you talk of, we are ending things up where we have what we call the 2010 constitution that we gave ourselves. And if you look at, in terms of adhering to that constitution, we haven't. You see, look at election issues. What would, for example, in the next general election, look at, let me give you a character like Raila Amolo Odinga. In as much as we try to have a broad, wide sort of government, what will make people not go to the street and not accept that they've lost elections? We need to me, the most important thing is adhering to the rule of law. We've seen government, in recent days, disobeying court orders. There's a big, problem between the courts and government. Government cannot, whereas we have a government that sought to uphold the constitution, a president who sought to uphold the constitution, we still utilizing this constitution. So I think we need to first of all adhere to what we have, and try to utilize what we have to a big extent before we even say that we need I am an anti-BBI person, if you ask me. And also, I am not I belong to the school of thought that thinks that in the economic terms that we have, things are pretty difficult for Kenyans, and we should not be bringing in a referendum at this point in time. You know how much it costs to have a referendum. If we must have one, then let it come along with the general election, so that we see what we can do to minimize on what we can, in terms of expenditure on the BBI. But I still believe that we have a constitution that we need to fully utilize before we think of adding up many other things.
Do you foresee a situation whereby BBI is going to be forced down the throats of Kenyans?
We've started doing that. We've started doing that. You have seen what happened in Parliament. You've seen what is happening in the Senate. They are coming down to the assemblies, and there's a very clear way of bringing people on board who will give it a leeway, will give it a nod, and have it move forward. We will have a Parliament that has now been forced to do things, and I can tell you for a fact, it's going to be forced down the throats of people.
Mm-hmm. All right, that's interesting. Now that you say that you are of the idea, we probably should go the referendum bill 2020, where there's that proposal by a member of parliament that we should probably hold this referendum, if we must, alongside the 2022 elections. I'll come to you, Tabitha, and get to hear your take on the same. We are coming at a point from a point where we struggled with the COVID-19. We still are struggling to ensure that at least we are able to finance our very own budget. And we're also staring at a point whereby there are proposals of us landing into a referendum. Do you suppose that will be the healthiest thing for us to do, in as much as we know very well that this is going to get us to a better place? How well then are we able to go back to balance in the event that we proceed with the referendum, knowing very well that we're strained, budget-wise?
Linda, the cost that comes with doing a referendum is so huge that we cannot just afford to do a referendum without proper consultation and involving public participation, so that we do not have referendums every now and then, like Mheshimiwa said. And therefore, even as we undergo COVID-19 and the hardships and the hard times that we are in, we need to have it in mind that a referendum is not the best idea at this moment still. I think that it's not a matter of rushing so that we have people's interest playing part in this. We need to just take a little bit of more time and get everything, every fact, and all the things that even the common mwananchi will want to be implemented if we were to have another constitution. And therefore, the calls for a need for the people involved in spearheading this whole referendum story, and even the whole referendum debate, to be a bit more patient and to undergo the due process. And the due process should also include the views of the mwananchi. Like if they want to, for example, bring in the positions of a non-executive prime minister and his deputies. What are the people saying about it? Why is it that they want to make some implementation in the constitution which people or the common man is not in agreement with? And at the end of the day, it will bring a lot of wrangles in the long run, and they will have to go to another referendum. So it's not the best of the idea at this moment. Basically, for me, it is because not everything has been tackled and not everything has been put into consideration, and public participation, I think, has not been fully done and considered.
Indeed, of course, the bill that was sponsored by the Constitutional Implementation Oversight Committee chairperson, that is Jeremiah Kioni, also is, of course, something that has changed the talk on matters referendum and whether indeed we should proceed to have a referendum at all. So these conversations are still ongoing, and we await on what the report will be carrying. That is BBI report that is set to be presented to President Uhuru Kenyatta. Of course, a deadline of tomorrow. We'll be following up on that to update you as, of course, and when this information gets into our editorial desk. So we'll leave it at that, and we cross over to a different story. And now that we're actually talking about matters a referendum, there are likelihoods that the system of governance is going to be changed. But even still, this does not stop a few Kenyans, a few leaders who have the interest to get it or to find themselves into the top seat, from campaigning, from pulling up their strategies, coming out to say that, you know what, we all have the thirst for presidency. Have you seen them, Mheshimiwa?
I didn't get you.
I'm saying that even as we're having a talk of a possible, change on matters constitution and a referendum that is likely to alter the system of governance, there's still some leaders who are out here pushing their bid to the 2022 presidential seat. Have you seen a majority of them, new parties cropping up, some of them out here in campaign, in as much as maybe they also pointed fingers at Deputy President William Ruto for early campaigns?
Yes. Let me say this, it is a constitutional right for anyone to want to run for president. And we've seen many of them. We've seen the likes of Kimbwana saying that they will go for the top seat. We've seen the likes of Governor Machakos saying that he's also going to go for top seat. It's good. It's good to be ambitious. It's good to eye into something. That is not a problem. I may have a problem with early campaigns, as the president has been alluding to, which to me, if you look at what the DP has been doing, to me, it's not necessarily a campaign. To a big extent, he is acting as the deputy president and playing out the roles of a deputy president. But again, he's a politician, he has ambitions, he's looking forward to 2022, so he brings a campaign along with it. But what I can tell you is that we are going to, the recently launched party by Mwangi Kinjuri, which happens to be the 83rd, if I'm not wrong, party to be registered in Kenya. I can tell you, in the next 2 years, we're going to have so many others crop up. What happens in politics is this, Linda. People are, what they intend to do with those parties is to look at what you call the post-election pacts. Pre-election pacts. Sorry. They're looking at behind and they'll be looking carefully to see who is likely to form the government. And what happens is, for you to show you might and political muscle as you gear up towards the election and as you get very close to the election, is your ability to amass as many candidates as you can, so that you're able to showcase that you're big party, you're able to bring people together. So what those people intend to do is that they'll look at who is most likely going to form the government, and they'll be up for grabs, for lack of a better word, so that when they come, they will be they will negotiate with those, the person who is most likely to place to power. So you will end up, you had Mwangi Kinjuri say that he's not likely to run for the governor of Ethiopia. So what he's doing is that probably he will negotiate for a position in government, either CAS. There's so many positions that exist within government. So it's a political strategy of seeing how you get in government again. It's a way of making sure that when the cake is being shared out, you are at the table as opposed to being at the back. So political parties is one thing that politicians know, that when negotiations are being carried out, you'll be called in to maybe surrender your party, so that whoever is likely to place power will show that I've brought. You remember what Jubilee did? There's so many small parties had a pre-election pact with Jubilee. And what happened is, they shared the spoil, the God sits here and there, within circles within, seats within Senate and National Parliament. government. Most people got nominations. You know, so basically, it's a way of trying to make sure that you'll be sitting at the table when the cake will be shared out,
When the
but
cake
not necessarily out. Yes.
All right, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's not necessarily for. It's not necessarily for that those people have people's interest in their hearts. You know, it's a way of making sure that when it's going to be shared out, then you'll be there and you get a bit of that cake.
All right, of course, so much that they are doing towards this. An interesting view right there, Mheshimiwa. But coming to you, Tabitha, do you suppose then that we should be having these leaders discussing on how best they are going to be on the race, looking at how, you know, we've always had issues with our elections. Sometimes we ask ourselves whether indeed we need an election at all. After an election, there's trouble, there's, you know, fights all over. You know, we fail to find leaders who are going to consent easily and say that indeed I agree that I have failed the Constitution. We now get court battles across. So the question then would be, would it not have been good for these leaders, first of all, to shelve their interest and focus on sanitizing and clearing the electoral process in the country, then now proceed to say that we are out here and I think we are ready and ripe to proceed and vie for elections? For instance, the IEBC still has some dots on it in regards to how best they can be able to carry an election for us again.
That's a very good question, Linda. And what I can say about it is that as much as we want to tell these leaders that we have a lot that has not been dealt with, and therefore it's not time for politicking, or it's not time for campaigns, or, you know, aligning for the 2022 elections, but then it is still a culture in this country that the leaders always start campaigning 2 years or a year to the election period.
Yeah.
And therefore they forget what really the common mwananchi wants. So you were saying that if we were to have an election, or an election which has no, you know, those the wrangles that we have seen in the past, then there are a lot of reforms that needs to be done with even the body in charge of doing the election itself. And therefore that calls for a concern, and then I think it should be addressed even before 2022 comes. So that solely relies on the government and the leaders to call for the same. But generally, I would not say it's a bad idea for leaders to be coming up and forming parties and wanting to say that they want to vie for presidential position or whatever position they want. As I've said before, it gives us the possibility or the chance to pick and pick well. And the election, like you're saying, that it gives us the question, really, does Kenya need to have an election, really? And I would say Kenya needs to have an election because we need to choose a new crop of leaders. We need to put leaders in the office in terms of their merits and what they've been able to deliver and how well they've been able to give us the promises, or, you know, they live according to the promises that they gave to the common mwananchi when they were campaigning. And therefore, it becomes even more easy for us as mwananchi to vet these leaders on the basis of merit, because when 2022 comes, it will be all about what did let's say, for example, the deputy president do that makes him one of the most outstanding personalities to be the president of this country. It gives us an option, yes.
Well, that's incredible. Also a view coming from indeed a concerned Kenyan. I mean, every other Kenyan would say, I wish we'd go to the ballot and indeed get our choices upheld. Coming to Mheshimiwa again, in as much as we'd want to say that, yes, these are leaders who are trying to just find a position for themselves. We know at the end of the day, if at all we have to go the presidential way, at some point we only have to have one leader who's going to be the president. Even if we go the parliamentary system way, we still are going to have specific leaders coming on board. So we cannot, again, bury our heads on the sand and argue that it's okay, well, these leaders are just trying to find space for themselves. I mean, you look at some of them, the likes of Kivutha Kibwana, second-term governor. Of course, what is his next step? One would want to know. We look at the likes of Governor Alfred Mutua. Equally, you know, as he exits the stage, he's done so much campaign on ground. I don't know whether you've seen some of his clips moving rounds on social media. He's trying to woo, you know, Kenyans, even at that level of the tribe. You know, he's speaking to the Luya in Kiluya, he's speaking to the Somali in Somali, he's speaking to the Kikuyu in Kikuyu, trying his level best to position himself. I mean, at what point then will he sit back and say, okay, well, I was just trying to create space for myself, so I'll be comfortable with getting a seat of a cabinet secretary, and many other leaders that we're talking about. We are looking at the key seven: President Uhuru Kenyatta himself, Deputy President William Ruto, Right Honorable Raila Odinga, Musalia Mudavadi, Moses Wetangula, Baringo Senator, that is Gideon Moi, and you know, Kalonzo Musyoka, all these key leaders, who is willing to step aside and leave the space for the next person genuinely?
Let me tell you something. Linda, let's be very honest. That we really don't have sanity in Kenyan politics. That I can tell you for a fact. It's a whole lot of a mixed up thing that is not good for this country, if you ask me. But if you look at the push to create regional governments, is coming from governors who doing the second term, because they're looking at where we do not have a situation. I mean, we do. It's a problem that exists in Africa where leaders still want to go on, where you still want to get a position up there. You're looking at governors who've done a very good job, like Kivutha Kibwana. And to him, I can tell you in his heart, he knows it's very difficult for him to get the presidency. But you see now, we still don't get to a situation where, as leaders, you can say, I've served for 2 terms. I need to have that person carry on. And let me just sit at home and do my own things and mentor leaders, young leaders to come up. We still want to have a position up there. So basically what will be happening is that in as much as they know, look at what you did through, the likes of Mutua, the governor for Machakos, trying to, he's on the ground doing a lot of campaign, but he knows what he wants is, he wants a position up there, because you cannot ignore him. You will have his numbers, you will amass his numbers. So what he's doing is that he's trying to get something that he can negotiate with, for opposition. In politics, it's about numbers. Politics is about what do you have when you come to the table. What have you come along with? So what he's trying to do is to amass his group and to get some support, support on the ground. So that you say, I have been to the Eastern, I have this group. I've been to the Western, I have this group. I've been to Nyanza, I have this group. Basically, that's what they're trying to do, which I think is not healthy. If you ask me, we need to have a situation in this country where we will have leaders who say, I have served in this capacity. Look at some of the leaders who want to get to power in the national election. These are people who served. You're hearing a 4-time member of parliament. You're hearing you've been this and that in this country, and they still want more power. I think we need to give young people an opportunity to come and serve. We need to give people, other people an opportunity, because as a leader, I would tell you this. I sit in around tables with some of these leaders, and the things you hear them talk, you really get it works you out to hear or what they want to go and achieve, just to amass things for themselves and not for the common man. So I think as you've got a what that I've lost the name. Has said we need to give Kenyans an opportunity to elect their leaders and probably get a new group of leaders, not recycle the same old ones. That's my thought.
All right. And Mheshimiwa, now that you brought the question of numbers, I think it's only fair that we ask these questions. How will the big numbers alter the regional voting patterns, the numbers of these leaders? Let's take a look at briefly, when you're talking about what is it that you're bringing on the table, most of the times you say, okay, from your region, you are Kalonzo Musyoka from the Ukambani. Yes, you enjoy numbers. This is what you're bringing on the table. Right Honorable Raila Odinga is bringing this on the table. We are talking about Deputy President William Ruto. You're bringing this on the table. So let's take a look at it, and we oversee a scenario whereby, of course, the Ukambani vote will be, divided between Kivutha Kibwana, divided between Alfred Mutua, divided between Kalonzo Musyoka and many other contenders. We're looking at where the Rift Valley vote will be divided between Gideon Moi and Isaac Ruto himself, and also Deputy President William Ruto. A scenario where the Western vote will be divided between Wetangula, Mudavadi, Oparanya, who's also coming on board, and Mukisa Kitui, as the key contenders, and also Eugene Wamalwa, who knows, as of course it is playing out right here. And also the central vote, also the Mount Kenya vote set to be divided with Siki Njuri now joining the race. Of course, we'll also have the say of President Uhuru Kenyatta. When you look at that, how will this alter the voting patterns? One, in terms of ensuring that this is what these leaders are bringing on board.
It's going to be crazy. There are going to be more divisions, more so in Central Province and in Western, as seen. But what I'm thinking is that most of these things that are coming, like the BBI process, what we're seeing the president do right now, having post-election pacts with parties, I will tell you, it's not about the people, it's about gearing for 2022. Even this referendum, those seats that we're saying, let's create seats and whatever. So I'm seeing a situation where we will know who will be the top contender before the election. In terms of, that is what we have in pre-election pacts. We have the likes of Raila right now in government, so to say. We have the likes of Knaiza Krucho coming. So what each group is trying to do right now is to see before 10, how many people can I bring on board, and so that they would now tell to say how many people can this person come with, how many people can that other person come to with. So it's going to be messy. It's going to be messy and noisy, and we still quite far from seeing, really conclusively saying this is what is going to happen, because we've about 1.5 years to go. So in politics, 1 year is a long time. I can see a lot of political realignments that will surprise a lot of people. You'll not be surprised to one day hear Ruto having negotiations with the likes of Raila. It's not going to be a surprise. So we're going to see a lot of alignment as we gear for 2022, which I believe is not really healthy for an economic decision and issues of COVID. We should be thinking about what is it that we can do as a country to see that we're able to solve it the most that we can in these very difficult times. What is it we can do to make sure that people, the question of opening the country, the economy and whatever, those are the things that we should be addressing ourselves to.
All right. Tabitha, Mheshimiwa largely pushes or squarely, tries to say that it's important we create space for the youthful leadership. And one would argue that maybe, that would be a good move, because then we're trying to push as much youth for the benefit of the future. But the question then would be, how unfair or how fair will it be for the old days for us to clearly, segregate them and say that we squarely need to bring the youthful leaders on board? And looking at the performance of the few that we have right now, would you say that we'll be confident enough to leave the leadership positions on the hands of the youths?
Linda, that's a very good question, and I'm glad that you brought it up. At the moment, I don't think the country is prepared to have, or it's in a position to have, the youthful population, the youthful people to have the key leads, like in terms of the presidency, and even the, let's say, the position of the prime minister, as we can say, because we have not seen these key political figures who are considered to be the big fish in the political scene in the country nurturing these people. We need a more mature politics and even leaders in the key roles. So this only therefore leaves us with one option, and the option is nurturing youthful leaders or youth leaders. What is it that the leaders who are there already, who have been there for a minute, doing to nurture and ensure that even as we progress in years, I'm going to say that this is going to be a gradual process for us to see even youth taking key leadership position in this country, especially in regards to the presidency and the like. It's going to be a gradual process, and it's going to be a process that needs nurturing. And therefore, even as we try and look at the performance of the current leaders, the youth leaders, I'll say they're trying, they're somewhere. The likes of Babu Owino is executing at its best, We've seen him, the way he's conducting his legislative duties, even at Embakasi. We've seen him, in terms of corruption, we've not seen him being pinned down with many corruption cases.
But integrity issues and his main undoing, of course, the latest case of DJ Involve, his main undoing, where does this place him?
We are getting there, though. So in terms of how he can perform given the office, or how he has been able to execute as a leader constitutionally, I think it only proves that the youth are capable and also are able to uphold the rule of law. And if we're to fight corruption at all in this country, then we need to have youth as leaders. Because if you look at even Honorable Kanji Gabwa, we call him Kanji, he has been able to bring a whole new kind of difference in leadership in the Starehe constituency. And therefore, given opportunities, we see that youth leaders have also been able to execute. And in relation to what you're saying, integrity issues that are touching on Honorable Babu Owino, it's something that is come out publicly, and as a leader, as a youth leader, is apologize to the public and also taking the responsibilities for his action. And moving forward, I think we're not going to see the same. And that is what we need to also see with the leaders who are in the leadership positions, coming out when they have integrity issues and acknowledging what they do as wrong and making it right.
All right. Thank you so much. Coming back to you, Mheshimiwa, I've heard Tabitha's stake in this, but I think it's only fair that we also get it from you, knowing very well that you're a member of County Assembly. We've seen these talks of impeachment. We've seen what has happened with Madam Anne Waiguru, and now talking about Charity Ngilu. And then there would be that feel from the women that in as much as there is that need for us to achieve the 2/3 gender rule, it's clear and evident that there's so much sabotage in terms of ensuring or seeing to it that women leaders thrive in this space of course, governance. What do you make of it? And what do you make also of these talks of rife impeachment processes across different parts of the country?
Let me say this. I would not say that women leaders are under attack, if you ask me, because I'll take those cases in isolation. I am looking at the case of Waiguru in isolation. I am looking at the case of the Honorable Charity Ngilu in isolation. What I would simply say is that we need to have forums that bring women on board, and especially women leaders, and they need to interact with their colleagues across the world so that they're able to mentor each other in terms of what is it, and also as a woman leader, you get into a space where there are so many men. Like if you go to the County Assembly of Kirinyaga, the majority of the members we have there are men. What is it that women are supposed to do when they get into leadership? Because I want to believe is that there is what I would not call. There's a battle that is within women leaders are not able to. For example, let me take the case of the Honorable Charity Ngilu. I've tried to inquire and care to know what is happening in Kitui. What I've been told is there have been a problem with the way she relates with men. There's a way she looks down on them. And you see, men, as members of County Assembly, what they do is they would react, and they bring up issues of governance and purport to bring her down on issues of integrity and that kind of thing. So I think we need to train women when they get into leadership. We need to have mentorship programs where we can train women and we can now show them, when you get to this place, this is how you live with these people. This is how you interact with these people. This is how far you should go with these people. And that way, that is going to really help women leaders. I want to say what is happening within the county assemblies. There is a lot of looming impeachment across the country. I think we have a problem, a legislative problem that we have to address. What Ibrimo Kangata was trying to do the other day when he brought a registration to the end, wanted to ensure that we have equity for every ward in this country, as opposed to leaving it to the discretion of the government. Because what is happening is that every governor who wants to get re-elected, they're looking at place what place is rich in votes, and they're doing more, they're taking more projects to those places and leaving other places. Maybe this place does not support me, I do not come from this place, and that kind of thing. So they issues of development are not being left to the discretion of the governor. Right. Whereas we need to have a registration in place that ensures that by right, development is spread out throughout the county. Like, for example, we've done in Kiambu, we just passed our budget a week ago, and we ensured, we sat down with the governor, and we agreed that we're going to have this amount of money spread out across all the 60 wards within Kiambu County. You see, that was an agreement, a local arrangement between us and our governor. We need to have a registration that ensures that every ward is taken care of in terms of development. And as much as the role of the MCA is to oversight, the common mwananchi votes for every person on the platform of development. So the member of county assembly would want to be seen. And what is happening, Linda, if you look at the case of Kirinyaga, as opposed to the governor using the member of the county assembly to identify projects within the respective wards, she's been using what we call the ward administrators, who the members of the county assembly feel a bit agitated in terms of, because you look at these people, when you use them, you give them a platform to run against you. But then moving away from that's a topic that we can talk the entire day, because it's a big problem that exists with the relations between governors and members of the county assembly. I want to say something that very interesting that Rubina has mentioned. in terms of leadership that we need to mentor young leaders. If you look at these political bigwigs that we have today, all of them, you would have a trace downwards in terms of who mentored them. If you look at the likes of William Ruto, you see what more he did to them when they were student leaders. If you look at the likes of Uhuru Kenyatta, look at what more he did to identify. Look at the likes of Raila Odinga. Some of them have fought their way up fine. But I agree, what we need to do, leadership to me is about mentoring other leaders. Look at the likes of Ndindi Nyoro. Ndindi Nyoro was the constituency manager for Irungu Kangata. Yeah. And that's how he came up. So we need to bring the young people in leadership positions down there and bring them up. For example, as I have an office within my ward, where I have brought in young people, 3 of them working there. And I'm trying to mentor them too. In as much as I have visions up there or maybe where I'm trying to show them you can become leaders in your own rights. You can get into this space and fight. So what we need to do is mentor these young, bring them up, give them positions in offices. She has mentioned the likes of Babu Owino. Babu Owino was a student leader at the University of Nairobi. But you see, the likes of Raila Amolo Odinga mentored them into colleges and showed them this is the way and gave them some space. I think that's the way we should go.
But just how genuine is this mentorship that is ongoing, or this nurturing that is ongoing? Sometimes you look at what the end product is, and you question whether indeed there was some genuine move and whether that was healthy leadership that was being inculcated in these youths. Maybe Tabitha, you can come in.
Yes, most definitely. When we talk about political mentorship for the young people, for the youth, then we only mean that the mentorship is a positive one, so that you teach them skills and ways through which they can propagate themselves and make themselves have a place in politics and even learn into the key roles of being the future leaders of this country. Therefore, we need to, like you've said, that the motive behind the mentorship of these youth leaders should be clear. And the clarity of it should be that we need to have leaders who are responsible. And as you mentor them, also you need to lead by example. For example, you cannot mentor a youth leader and claim that you want corruption to be freed in the country. And as a leader in the country already, who is trying to be a role model to the rest, because we have so much of poor role models, or so many of poor role models in terms of leadership positions in this country that the young people look up to. So when they get up there, they do not see the need to do better, because the predecessors never did any better. They always upheld corruption, and the rule of law was never respected. So if we were to have a new crop of youth leaders whom will execute even better than what we've seen in the past, then there is a need for role models to be there, and they do things that even as the young people see and they get into these political positions, like Mheshimiwa said, that there is a need for them to identify these people who can lead as young people and mentor them and making sure that they get somewhere, like Moi did, like, we've seen even Ruto doing, and even Honorable Raila Odinga doing in the past with Babu Owino. Then there calls for a need for these leaders to be exemplary. So exemplary means that even the young people will be able to copy some of these virtues from them, and moving forward we'll be making this Kenya a great country. And if we're going to just mentor the youth and say that we're mentoring leaders and still we are not leading by example, then the same vices and what we are seeing in the political scene in this country are going to be repeating itself year in, year out, and change is not going to be something that we're going to see even in the future if the mentorship is not done correct, as you've said, Linda.
Right. Coming back to you, Mheshimiwa, Kiambu being one of the strong counties that we have on board, I would want to ask this question as we wind up on this particular topic. One, do you think, let me say this. Do you think devolution is, 1, under attack, 2, was a mistake, or 3, is in the right trajectory?
But to me, if you ask me, devolution was a well-thought idea. What we are yet to me, we're in the right track. It's that we are a bit slow in terms of getting there. But what we need to do as a people is voters need to, let me put it in two ways. There is the aspect of leaders and there is the aspect of electorates, because the electorates need to be very considerate when they're putting up. The system is good. It's only that we're putting the wrong people in the system. That would be the way I would look at it. The reason why we're slowing devolution, whereas devolution was meant to devolve money and projects to the least of us, to the smallest unit, that is with the one to the common mwananchi. What you're seeing is, like, for example, what you had in Kirinyaga, a problem with people bringing in the wrong person who comes in and embezzles, and you see how on earth because that was not in line, how on earth do governor close down 40 something health facilities? How on earth do you do that? In as much as health is a devolved function where you want to put in more money and make sure that health services within Kirinyaga or even in Kiambu, you better the health services. How on earth do you go closing this health facility? What that tells you the system is right. Everything has been set up well. It's only that you put the wrong people in those positions. So that is where the election is coming. That as we gear up for the next election, as the people, we need to sit down and ask ourselves: Are we growing up? In terms of the way we perceive politics, and in terms of what makes us elect a certain leader. Are we going to have a situation in the next election where money will be thrown our way and we will bring in the same sort of leaders to these positions? When will we change the trajectory? For example, you remember the case of Waiguru. Let me just go back to that. Having come from NYS, a lot of issues we had about her. Still, the people said this is the person we want because probably she came and threw in something along the way. When are we ever going to change as a people? Because the minute we change, let me give you a very practical thing, Linda. I come from a ward where I have got 32,000 registered voters. I have over 300 churches that exist within my ward. Every church and every person knows, and it is public domain, how much I earn as a leader, as an MCA. But the expectations of the people are too high to the extent that everybody wants to call you for Harambee here and there, and you must attend. Right? So what am I trying to say? It has to begin with the people they know. We did not elect this leader to come and attend my Harambee. He may come in as a person and help and throw in something. Fine.
Do you suppose, that could be a catalyst? Sorry, allow me to cut you short, or maybe to distract your line of thought. Do you suppose that could be the catalyst behind, these corruption cases that we witnessed today, that, the people expect so much from the leaders, something that they cannot attain, then they're forced to go out there and steal, so at least they can maintain their name and also take care of the people?
Precisely, that's it. That's what I'm alluding to. Because the idea, when the expectation is high, we need to get to a situation where electorates will now look at the leaders in terms of deliverables. What is it that you told us you will do for us? Because when you on your campaign trail, the things that you tell people is that I will do this road. I will make sure that we will have a ball here. I'll make sure that you do 1, 2, 3, 4 things. But you see, when the people bring you to account, they do not bring you to account on those things. They bring you to account on different things. I called him for Harambee, he did not attend. There was a merchant that placed this person, we never saw this person. I think as a people, we now need to look at things differently. And once we change, once we have a paradigm shift, then I think progressively we get there. Because the evolution is very good. The idea was well thought. That's what I'm saying. It has to, it's the aspect of leaders and the aspect of the people who elect those leaders. Once we have a paradigm shift, once all of us, if you go to Rwanda, for example, Rwanda is doing very well, and you look at the way they are electing their leaders. You look at the way they are addressing their leaders. The president will just come, for example, in Kiambu and say, "Today is a day where we're addressing the problems of the people." So all leaders will be called, and all people the electorates will be called and be asked, "What is your problem? Which leader is not serving you well?" We need to have a platform upon which we can be accountable. And as a people, again, we also need to have a platform where we, again, as electorates, we can also try to be more to sanitize ourselves, so to say, in terms of the expectations that we have from our leaders and all those things. So, Linda, I'm sure you get what I'm saying.
I do, Mheshimiwa. Thank you so much for the great views right there. I mean, time will tell, and we see whether indeed we'll be able to make progress in terms of the leadership that we have today, and whether indeed devolution will be a great achievement for us as a people of Kenya, especially towards ensuring that we have development at the grassroots. Away from that, and we cross over to Malawi and say Africa at large, the man on my screen or on the screen. is that one person that all eyes are on, especially right here in the continent, and the win of Lazarus Chakwera as the president, official president, and officiated and sworn in as the president for Malawi. Something that has been celebrated so much so. And coming to you to open up this discussion, Tabitha, Lazarus says that victory and democracy, his win is a win, or his victory for democracy and justice. Do you suppose that this is the case, looking at the scenario that, he won, of course, got to win, and especially at this particular time where there's still talks of, people going to court because they felt like even the second run of an election was not genuinely conducted?
Most definitely, Linda, this is a case of democracy and justice. Democracy comes in like this. The people of Malawi had the say again. They elected their leader, and it was not something that was quite common in so many nations of the world, even in Africa. Having an opposition leader going for the second time of the rerun for presidential election and having the win is quite something that is applaudable. And also it is justified in the sense that we had previously a president in Malawi. And you see, since they had the election last year in May, the president has been in office. Despite the fact that the presidency was nullified, he still went ahead and got to be sworn in as the president, and therefore he's been in office. And even in the past, we've seen his attempts to wanting to change the CJ, the Chief Justice in charge of the judiciary in Malawi, which still the court turned down. So the court system or the judiciary system in Malawi is that which signifies democracy and justice, because they did not give in to the bullies of the presidential power or even the laws that were there in place. Because even we have seen so many cases of African countries, like the other time in Nigeria, where the president changed the Chief Justice just like that, and he had his say at the end of the day. But in this case, the people of Malawi had their say, and also the judiciary stood on what was to be considered as the rule of law, what was right constitutionally.
In the worst case scenario, do you foresee a situation whereby we would have said, okay, for the second time, then the elections were annulled and maybe they are forced to proceed to another one?
Yes, most definitely. If there were irregularities, I don't think the courts or the judiciary system would have given into any of not of what considered to be the best results. They will still go for a rerun, because at the end of the day, the judiciary of Malawi has proven that indeed Africa is not just a continent of corruption, a continent of irregularities and infringement of people's rights, but there is still hope in the judiciary system. And there is so much that Kenya as a country needs to copy from Malawi.
All right. Mheshimiwa, coming to you. A win for Lazarus Chakwera, a win for Africa. I mean, looking at the talks of democracy, looking at how hard sometimes it's good to, root out an incumbent at some point in time.
Yeah, I largely agree with Tabitha, because what we saw in Malawi is something beautiful. The judicial system in Malawi stood, as Tabitha has alluded to, and really, this should serve as an example to all African countries, because we've had a lot of problems in terms of changing leadership, and also when there is a very powerful incumbent. So, to me, it was a win for democracy and justice. So, progressively, that's a route that Africa should take. And I'm sure I seriously try to follow these elections that we did, and I can tell you, in as much as they are purported to be, some mismanagement in terms of the way the election was built. Largely, it was a fair election, and I think we are on the right path, and that's the way Africa should. We should all emulate Malawi. That's the route to follow. Yes.
All right. What do you foresee in terms of, what is going to play out in Uganda? We now see Bobi Wine, the likes of Kizza Besigye emerging, in a bid to win against, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. And such has been the case in most African countries. You find that incumbents are always sticking to it and, always, clinging on to power, finding ways of ensuring that they're going to stick to power for the longest of time, probably for life.
I've looked at decisions that have been made by President. Let me give you an example of Tanzania. Yeah. Tanzania proposed that there does not exist corona, and there does not. It's not a danger to them, it's not a threat to them. Whereas what is playing out is politics. They have an election this year, later in the year. So what the president is trying simply to do is to put the lives of Tanzanians to risk for political mileage and, showing them that Tanzania, like other countries that are locking up, Tanzania is on the right. How people are going to die in the name of other diseases or because of political ambitions. In the case of Uganda, as you said, I've been to Uganda and I can tell you the power of incumbency in Uganda is so much to the extent the government really finds. If you go to Kampala, for example, Kampala is where you find the most. I have never seen as many border borders as I saw in Kampala. And when I care to ask, how come you have so many motorbikes in this town? It's very, they're many and noisy, and they're all over. And I was told all of them are bought by politicians that are closer of the president. Actually, it's the president who funds them. So it becomes really difficult. As I told you, quite a lot is thrown on people's way to make sure that people will stick to power and for the long time. But I think this time, the likes of Bobi Wine and everybody in the opposition in Uganda come up and stand out for what is right for the people, because there have been issues with of governance in Uganda. The other very important thing is to make sure as a country should have systems that will make sure that the judiciary is independent. If you look at what happens in Uganda, you would not really say that the judiciary is independent. I've cared to look at the way they choose the attorney general, everybody, and judges, and the chief justice and review, and the president has a big hand on it. So even when it comes to issues of elections being contested in court, and you find that the president will have a hand in it. And I also thought that what happened in Kenya last time is a good thing. The way the judiciary stood, it really amazed me. The way Maraga said there was a problem here and we need to get back to it. I think that these are the systems that we need to have in place in all countries in Africa, and that way we will have good checks and balances and make sure that democracy and justice finds its way.
All right. Interestingly, in Tanzania, there's no always room for someone to go there and contest. I don't know whether that's a good thing democratically or not, but all the same, we've seen how peaceful their transitions have been for the longest of time. We still have the leaders or their presidents, enjoying their stay in the country, the previous presidents that were there. So it's an interesting way, of approaching issues. And then we say that indeed it's a step towards direction towards ensuring that Africa again is able to get or to attain democracy in totality. We're still looking at countries like Nigeria, where the likes of Buhari are there. We're looking at countries like Cameroon, where the likes of Yahya Jammeh, not Yahya Jammeh, yes, of course, what is the president of Cameroon? Paul Biya, yes, Paul Biya is still there. I mean, we saw the likes of Yahya Jammeh being ousted out. So it's an interesting time in, the history of Africa. But before we wind up, I think it's only fair that I allow you, Mheshimiwa, to speak something or to speak to your people, the members of the county assembly. But before that, let's allow also Tabitha to, just give us the parting shots, speaking to the youth and addressing the politics of the country to the youth and how best we can make change.
Thank you so much, Linda. Yeah. There's something I want to add in relation to the Malawian election and the system as it is, that Kenya needs to really emulate from it, and even other countries of the world, especially Kenya. In recent time, we have seen the rift between the executive and the judiciary, whereby the independence of the judiciary as an arm of the government has been worrying, because a lot of what it's supposed to do is not being able to do it and implement its functioning, and even make sure that the cases that are taken to court are implemented in good timing, because there's been wrangle between it and the executive. In Malawi, for example, we have realized, or we've seen, even in the recent times, that the independence of judiciary and executive is so clearly defined, and the executive does not at all interfere, or even if it interferes, but the rule of law and even the separation of powers as it is, or even the independence of these arms of the government is still something that we are able to see. So there's a need for Kenya to copy that. All the arms of the government are independent. The parliament is so independent, and I'm so happy that the legislature is doing so good as far as independence of these arms of the government is concerned. But the rift between judiciary and executive is something that needs to be dealt with. There should not be interference of the executive in the judiciary matters. Now, in relation to what you've told me to give us my bottom line, in terms of youth leadership, I always say and I believe that as youth we have the capabilities, we have the energy, we have the mindset and the ideas and opinions, and even what we need to steer this country ahead in terms of ideologies. But at the same time, we need to embrace the fact that for you to be a leader, you need to begin early. So it calls for a need, as we said earlier, and even Mheshimiwa said, for our political leaders to mentor young people into leadership positions, and to ensure that even as we make decisions that pertains to national development and even national building, because it's all about national growth, then we need to have these youth at the bargaining table. This way we engage them and we make sure that they're also involved in the process of making law. You cannot tell a youth to obey laws, the laws which they're not involved in making. So for you to say that we need law-abiding citizens in terms of youthful leadership, then we need to engage them in all the spheres of national developments and even national agendas. Even in the BBI, I think there's a lot that needs to be addressed in terms of youth leadership. And for a minute, if I can say this for just 1 minute, Linda, I think there should be a bill that should be passed in Parliament that also gives a certain percentage for youth leadership and positions in Parliament. This way, just like 2/3 gender rule, then we shall be able to speak the language of us having leaders of tomorrow who are being mentored and nurtured. Let us not just assume things, because it's not something that is happening. So something needs to be done, a legislation needs to be passed, and even a bill to be passed for that matter. So I think even Mheshimiwa, since they're the ones who have the mandate or even the abilities to pass such, they should have such in mind that the youth also need to have that representation in terms of numbers in the National Assembly. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tabitha Ogutu. Coming to you, Mheshimiwa, in a minute or so, speak to your members of County Assembly as we get to wind up this segment.
Thank you, Linda. And I can tell you something. While I want to congratulate Tabitha, I can tell potential where I see it. I can tell you she's going very far, and she's very clear in terms of what she wants in life and that kind of thing, and that's a good thing. But let me say this. I come from a county where we've had political issues in the past couple of years. And we had a situation where the governor had to be ousted and we brought in a new governor. So I think to me, I will speak to the people of Kiambu and most to the County Assembly of Kiambu and the executive led by the governor. There is time that we come together. It is time that we unite. These are not the days that we should be talking about impeachment. We need to have a situation where we now work for our people. We lost a lot when we were trying to ensue on each other in terms of who is right and who is wrong, who should go and who should not go. I think it is now time we bring some bit of sanity in Kiambu politics. It's time that we come together as a people and make sure that we deliver to the people. We have done a program-based budget in the last last week, and that is what we passed. But I think we began along that line and we're able to collect as much as we can in terms of revenue and live to what we promised our people. I think the next 3 years are bright for Kiambu. So to tell the people of Kiambu, you should not be discouraged. We will work for you. We will fight for your rights. We will make sure that we give you benefits and in these very hard times to make sure to caution you in these hard times. So I think to me is unity in all counties, all counties and all county assemblies. And even before you rush to impeach a government, it is important that we explore all other avenues of trying to bring sanity to counties. It's important that before we hurl insults on each other and bring others to Senate and whatever, it's important that and this again I would challenge the Senate. The Senate has a clearly defined role in law in terms of making sure that devolution and county governments work in harmony.
Yeah.
It is important for you, Linda, to know that there is even a seat for the senator at every county assembly. The last time I saw my senator in my county assembly, I have never actually. It's only on the swearing in when we're being sworn in. I saw him come to witness that, but he needs to keep coming and knowing what is it that is happening at the county assembly in relation to what is happening at the executive. So what you need to see more is the Senate doing arbitration and arbitral role in counties, as opposed to waiting for things to come to the Senate so that they can listen to impeachment motions and all of you. So I think we need to. I will address all counties and tell them, all county assemblies. I think we now need to sit down and talk to our governors, because we don't have time to deliver to our people. We have very short time, and we've minimal resources, due to what nobody of us foresaw the COVID-19. So we really need to do harness as much as we can and deliver as much as we can to our people. That would be my message.
Thank you so much, Mheshimiwa, and of course Tabitha Gutu, who's a youth leader and also, and journalist. Thank you so much for your time this morning up until now, and also Anthony Konya Moniki, who's the member of County Assembly Kiambu Ward. It was great having you two, and we're looking forward to more sessions some other time. It's time now that Morning Cafe takes a short break. We'll be right back with more in terms of the breakfast tips that we'll have for you. A week that is going to be sorted in terms of what we have prepared for you. Interesting segment right there, and also we'll be taking a look at what is on the international scene, and importantly, what is happening on the roads just for you. We'll also be sampling some of your feedback after this break. Thank you. And time for Morning Cafe breakfast tips. Before we get to the day's business, it's important that we fix our breakfast and fix it well. Guess who's joining me? Chef Alex, who's actually invited us to his place, and he's going to prepare us an amazing breakfast. What do we have on the menu, Chef?
My name is Chef Alex. I'm a show chef. Today we're going to have a simple breakfast. Very simple. You can make it at home.
Yeah.
Anybody can afford it. It doesn't have to go too extreme. We're gonna use the simple ingredients that you basically have at home. Just a simple healthy breakfast, which comprises of scrambled egg, some avocado, some onion, tomato, green peppers, and also we're gonna have the taco bread.
Alright.
So we're gonna start our show by first. The first principle of the kitchen is hygiene. First, wash your hands.
Run. Hiyo ni mingi.
Here we are going to make the tacos. We have the warm water, a pinch of salt, some oil, corn oil, and the flour for the dough.
Yeah.
So what do we need to do? We need 200 grams of flour, which 1 spoon is actually around 50 grams. So
that means like 4.
4 of them.
Yeah. So I'm sure all of you could be asking yourself what taco it is. We'll all wait to see what it will be like. Okay?
Then here, for me, I'm gonna make the simplest taco, but you can do an advanced taco. You can add as much ingredient as you need, but for today, we're gonna make our simplest taco as ever. So inside here, we need some little bit of oil.
Yeah.
This little bit.
You need a spoon?
Yes, sure. Need some oil.
Okay.
Let's say like 200 ml of oil. Okay. 1 spoon comprised of 10 ml.
Okay. Yeah.
That's okay. Then we have the salt, a pinch of salt, just to give the taco a little bit of taste.
All right.
Then we're gonna use our hands
to
mix it.
Okay.
So the salt and the oil are nicely mixed inside.
All right.
Before adding any water, because you might add more water and then your dough is
it ceases to be a dough, inakuwa soft like.
Inakuwa soft kabisa.
All right.
Sawa. I need it as soft as possible.
Okay.
Yes. That's why you see.
Of course, you're saying 30 minutes does not mean ati kutengeneza tu kukanda peke yake. Like the entire process.
The entire process from the word go until we are done with it.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
You see what I mean? So this
that is how it's supposed to be.
This is This is what I meant. You need to add a little bit
some unga,
little bit of water slowly by slowly, because the more you add more water, the more your dough gonna be sticky like this. Yeah. Make sure it doesn't stick in your hands.
Yeah. That will be based on the water, the amount of water and oil you put, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's how you know your dough is
ready.
Yeah. So our dough is not yet ready.
Okay.
So we.
In this case, you need more. No, you need nothing more.
Nothing
just
more.
mix.
Just mix it nicely.
Okay.
As you can see, my dough doesn't stick on my hands.
So that's perfect.
It's soft.
I am told that after a chapati, sometimes you need, like, for you to get chapati soft, you get that from the time you mix.
Yes. If you make a hard dough, your chapati gonna be hard.
All right.
So you need to make your dough as simple as
For how long can you knead?
It depends.
It depends.
With someone.
Oh, of course, the amount of also unga. But approximately 15 minutes would be good.
15 minutes
is too much.
Too much.
Okay.
Around 5 to 7 minutes, it should be done.
Good. Okay.
So you can touch and feel it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Firm enough.
Firm enough.
All right.
Soft enough.
And yes, it does not stick like you said.
Yes. So what you're gonna do? You're gonna make it like a ball, a little bit ball, like this.
Yeah.
Leave it to rest.
Okay.
we need like 10 minutes for
it to rest. Okay, so in that case you cover?
You cover it.
Okay.
Make sure.
Something wet?
Something wet.
Oh, so that works. You know that I was taught in primary school and I thought,
it works.
Okay, so you want me to wet that for you?
Yes.
Let me wet that for you.
So for us, we have this. Gonna cover it. Gonna keep it.
So it doesn't have to touch the dough itself. You just cover from the
from the dough. If you want it to touch the dough, if you have a service like this, you can just put a little dust of flour down there. Then cover it. It's also an idea.
All right.
Okay. So we're gonna give it like 5 to 7 minutes to rest.
All right.
So that we can go to the next step. So as we wait for the dough to rest, so we're gonna have to make the ingredients for the healthy breakfast.
Okay.
So for us today, we're gonna have the tomato, we're gonna have the onion, and we're gonna have the green bell peppers, and we're gonna have the avocado. Okay.
Perfect.
So what we're gonna do, and then on the side we're gonna make a simple scrambled egg to go with it. So when you eat, you can feel the egg. You can feel the savory of the avocado, tomato inside, like this.
So in this case, you have like a complete breakfast. Yes. You have your proteins inside. You have your vegetables and your carbohydrates.
Everything inside.
Perfect. Let's go.
For onion.
Yes.
We're gonna need 1 piece of onion for that.
This would be breakfast for how many? The one that we're making today, at least.
For the one that you're making today, it's gonna be like for 4 to 5 people.
Okay.
Yes. Only the chef knows how sharp your knife is. So
So you cook for them sometimes?
Yes. Okay. Sometimes I cook. Even my wife. Home? Yeah. When I'm at home, even my wife is a very nice cook actually.
Oh, okay.
I taught her enough, so when I'm not around,
she does a good job.
She does.
Why did you decide to teach her? Is it because, like they say, chefs do not enjoy meals from other people, so you have to teach her so at least you're able to enjoy a meal at home?
No, not because of that.
Yeah, just be honest with us.
The honest part is we love cooking. This is passion, but we hate cooking at home sometimes. We like cooking from the madam's food is much sweeter than.
Alright.
Yes. And this is just a job, you know. And then there is a part of home.
Yeah.
Yes. But you need her to give you the best even when you have guests around the house.
True.
She can do something.
So this is something you can use for the omelette, or the eggs are not, they're just going to be scrambled, yeah?
Yeah, scrambled.
Right.
And actually this even you can have as an evening snack.
Okay.
Yeah. Even when you have guests, you want to have just a little bit snack. This is a nice snack you can have.
Okay.
Yeah. Our surface is clean. So take our dough. Yeah, as you can feel it, touch it. Tell me what's the difference.
Oh, it is it's much
softer
than it was.
That it was, okay?
Okay, that's
so what you're
interesting.
gonna do, little bit of dusty down. Yep. First, so what happens, inside there is air. So we're gonna remove this air from the dough so that it gives us a nice, perfect taste of what you're gonna have, okay?
Alright.
Then we're gonna need to make simple loaves, like 5 and we're gonna have 50
balls.
50 grams of this. Okay.
Yeah.
It's more like this. It depends with the pan that you have, but the best is 50, so that you can be able to touch and eat.
All right.
Yeah. Now I'm gonna make like a. Let's start with this.
Okay.
Make our dough like this, round like chapati. We're gonna put our pan ready.
That's okay. Okay.
Okay. Now we do our dough.
That's right.
Making this one,
Okay.
So we put there until it starts to become fluffy on top.
Okay.
Yeah. So I go on. That's what I mean. Should start to become fluffy. That one side is already done.
And then you turn.
Then you turn it.
Okay.
You can see the fluffy it is. So you can see until a little bit more brown.
Haitakuwa ngumu. You don't get scared of it.
No. You can see?
That's beautiful. So in this case, just moto kidogo sana, like
moto kidogo sana, yeah. Don't make too hot, because if you make your pan too much hot, what's gonna happen? And the dough will just be.
Okay.
So you need your pan as less heat as possible. Yeah? Okay. So you can see this is done. Okay. It's soft. You can touch. You can feel it that it's soft and stretchy. We need like 4 pieces of eggs. Then we need a little bit of salt just to give it taste. A little bit of brown. Yep, so we're getting ready. After our tacos bread are ready, as you can see, now we go for the eggs. Yeah? So our pan is hot. Just a little bit of oil. And then this is the trick about the scrambled egg. Yeah? When you're making the scrambled egg, make sure it doesn't overcook. We need it them as soft as possible.
Okay.
Yeah? So here, you see, start mixing. Switch off, it's ready.
That is cooked?
Yes.
See, did you?
No.
Oh, okay, so
that's not ready because our pan is still hot.
Alright, so you will be cooking all
I'll still be cooking for that point. Okay. That's how it should be.
All right.
And then there's some people who don't have a healthy breakfast. So in this scrambled egg, as you're making totally healthy,
okay,
you don't want to add any cream, any butter. This is what we're gonna do. We're gonna take our, we have a bowl.
Yeah.
We're gonna take our, let me use this. We're gonna take some onions.
Right.
Some onions. Some tomato. Our coriander inside. And our bell peppers inside.
Okay.
Yep. Put aside. Next. Here goes now. This is the part now we put our avocado.
Okay.
Yeah. Take our avocado. We're gonna make like a salsa.
Okay.
Yep. So we cut our avocado.
So there's no more cooking at this point. You know, when people see onions and
at this point there's no cooking.
Okay.
Small slices.
Okay.
Then we need to put salt to taste.
Okay.
I'll give a trick at this point, because you might be serving for like 10 people or 15 people and you need a large bowl to do for this.
Right.
So when you're doing this, you're gonna find by the time you do the last taco, your avocado, because of it's already in an open kitchen and the moisture start to change the color of the avocado. So there is a trick that we do. We either put some lemon juice, it helps preserve the avocado green as possible.
Okay.
If you don't have the avocado, if you don't have the lemon, we can use vinegar.
Okay.
Yeah, it acts the same.
All right.
I have some. I think I have some lemon. And I'll give you a trick. When you have a whole lemon, this is half lemon.
Okay.
You need to squeeze it, or like somewhere. Or
okay.
So here, I'm gonna have a little bit of lemon juice.
All right.
Yep. Put aside. Then this is the part we.
This does not change the taste in any way?
Nope.
Okay.
And actually, lemon juice is like a cooking agent,
All right.
and a preservation agent also.
We have to taste.
It
is enough.
Yep.
So this is mine.
Yes.
Okay.
What do you
Perfect.
Feel? Perfect. You feel it?
Perfect.
Perfect. So what are you gonna do? The next step is a little bit of presentation.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So what you're gonna have? There, pick up your taco bread.
Okay.
First step.
Oh, all right. Now I get it. Oh, see. Okay.
Don't put too much.
All right.
Okay. There's this.
You need a spoon?
Give me a spoon. My eggs.
Okay. Okay. Do you need like dough ile kunini, as in some paste?
Nope.
You don't need some paste.
Here you can just do like this.
All right.
You can use a toothpick.
Oh, okay.
Slide it.
It's creative enough.
Yeah. Okay, this is our final product.
Yeah.
So it's ready to eat, ready to.
I'm literally salivating, and I do not know why. you should not have a beautiful, I am calling it beautiful because it's literally beautiful, breakfast at home. You know what this means? Like, honestly, by the time because by the time I'm done with this show, I think I'll be so big. All right, Niganish, this is beautiful, this is amazing, this is healthy. It's everything that you'd want in a breakfast. Courtesy of Chef Alex, courtesy of Morning Cafe Breakfast Tips. We'll be doing this every other week just so you're not left out. And I mean, impress your wife, impress your husband, impress your family members, only on Morning Cafe.
So we can have a taste.
To China juice. And we're done. It's a wrap. Bye-bye. See you again next week. Lovely. Thank me later for that. We'll be bringing you all of that every other Monday, like I have promised right there. I might not be able to go through some of your comments or the traffic or even the international scene, but not to worry because we'll have that on our subsequent bulletins. Kirobi is coming up next with Matukio Mtambuko. My name is Linda Lela. Do enjoy the rest of your week.